that time, boys. Showtime. Oh, yeah. Oh, get her squared up.
Alright boys, so it was around this time we started noticing a significant misfire. A little bit at cruise and idle, and obviously really crappy misfire. Once we tried to put it under load, we couldn't even make 6 pounds of boost. And we had spent most of the morning swapping out parts, starting with injectors and coils and plugs and a whole bunch of stuff. It did end up being the coil packs that I had were just awful. And luckily, a friend of ours, John Martin, stopped by, who has a Turbo LS swapped SN95 street car. I'll show a picture of it here real quick. So he stopped by and we took his coils off his car because his makes like 550 no problem. Finally threw his coils on, fresh plugs, his wires, everything, negated the whole ignition system out of the equation with his parts, and had no trouble at all after that. So a little bit, quite a struggle in the morning with just shotgunning parts at it, because I just didn't schedule a car in the morning so I could get my car on for seemingly some quick hits, which ended up being a bunch of time spent diagnosing an ignition issue.
Blew the pipe off the front.
It sounded like it.
Yeah, charge pipe action.
I heard it, and then I looked at the RPM to make sure it was decelling.
Yep. As soon as you lift it, yeah.
It didn't shut the fuck off. No, it came up and hit 20 pounds perfect, so I was like, oh, what a fucking guess. Jesus Christ.
That's easier than putting the air to fucking...
Mark's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, I'm going to rebuild the fucking output and do pulse width modulated, blah, blah, blah. Change it. I'm like, oh, fuck it, 50%. And I whacked the whole table. Well, I did 100 down low to like the turbo better, which I think it did.
Yeah.
And then I whacked it with 50 flat, so it's doing boost control through a simple output right now. So it doesn't do anything until it hits like a pound or two, and then it enables the output. And then I have it at 100.
Also, another funny situation I would like to explain is that halfway through the day, after we got our ignition fixed, my regulator died. The one I always use for like the last 3 years finally died while trying to tune my own car. So funny how that stuff always happens. But the regulator wouldn't add any more than like 13 pounds of boost, and we ended up taking the regulator off and finding out the regulator was busted. So that's why we had to finish tuning the car with just the pulse width modulated Mac valve, like onboard boost control, but that's why we couldn't get any more than, spoiler alert, we couldn't make any more than 20 pounds of boost, because my regulator was dead and all I could use was my onboard air and what was left of my low, like 5-pound wastegate spring. So, anyway, let's continue on and show the spectacular dyno pulls and call it a day and go over the data.
You got the camera rolling?
Just started it.
All right. Party time.
On the trans brake. This is the brake and that's the bump.
Yep.
So, right?
That's right.
We're good?
Oh,
It hooked.
yeah.
It hooked. It didn't spin a drop.
I know. Back my head against the fucking seat. I love it. I can't wait.
I mean, that was...
Hell yeah.
All right, so quick here. Those were two quick display videos of me showing Mark how I wired the Holly to do bump or staging control. Bump is owned by Davis or Pulse Leash or something electronics, so they can't call it that for legal reasons. So anyway, they call it staging control, but that's how you can get the trans brake. You can build full boost and then creep in. As you can see here by the dyno charts, it was not an easy day, but we ended with a huge success in my opinion. The car had to make 700 horsepower at least to be relevant. It has to weigh not that much. It has to 60 foot really good at 700 tire. The stretch goal was 800, which I think for sure it will go, because I had to quit tuning because I couldn't produce any more boost and I had another car on at noon. So I was happy with the 730 at 20 pounds. Very happy with that. It was gaining 35 horsepower per pound up to that above like 14-ish where we started really slamming it because I didn't want to waste time. So my assumption is it will go all the way to 800 tire, and 800 tire, and if this weighs in the low 3,000 range, should be a fairly easy 8-second pass as long as we get it to hook and everything else. And you guys know the rest of the story. So very happy with it for now. So we can go over some data logs and informatics if you want to. Hang in. Okay, guys, so we will jump into some logs here. And a lot of these were just serious issues and swapping things around. So, this is where we thought we had no miss. This is where boost control wasn't working. This is when we started putting shop air on. And this is when it hit nearly 20 pounds. So we'll jump right into this data log. So this was my first hit with boost, and I put almost no ignition in it. So what do we see here? About 5 degrees at probably peak torque. I wanted to see what it would do. So it hit 21 pounds, had 5 degrees at peak torque. Up top, boost fell off, which was another indicator that the regulator was not working. But what we do see is important here is fuel and oil pressure are good, manifold temp is outstanding, air fuel is good, everything else is happy. But I was like, why is boost falling off? And I'm like, you know what? I think my regulator is still bad. So we messed with the regulator. We found out that it was in fact bad, which just kills me, crushes my soul. So what I did here was I went right here to try boost control, and I tried onboard boost control, and I believe I had an issue here. It would come up to target and then fall off. Yeah. I did not have time to remedy this. I was getting annoyed that I just did not, have the time to hash this all out. I wish I had spent 2 hours in the beginning of the day doing well and figuring this out, but that's just not how it went. And I'm sure some of you will rejoice because, man, I have exceedingly good luck, and it was just fighting me. So I set up a permanent output and just locked it at 50% real quick to do manual boost control. And lo and behold, I got, as we can see here, I got 20 pounds, and it held all the way with the boost controller. So that's another reason why we confirmed that the regulator was bad. And I threw a little bit of ignition in it. So I had 16 down low and 16.1 here. So this was the first hit on 20-ish pounds. And I think this was it. That was a good guess. So it made 684. And I'm like, well, I have a little bit of cleanup here to do. Not bad for like a first real hit. And then here, I dumped the duty cycle even more. And this is where we found out that I was out of wastegate, technically. So here we hit 19.5, 21. We could not get any more than 21. This was with like 80-some% or 65% duty cycle on the boost controller. So this was like 1 extra degree in, I believe. And we made 725 on 19 to 21 peak. About an average. I wish this would do an average. I think it will if I... Will it tell me the average of boost pressure? No, I'm not that good with the Holly logger. Anyway. So, and then the last hit, I just threw 100% duty cycle at it. See, it says here 730 wheel, no more boost. So this is where I brought it up, and, we averaged 20, 20.8, 21, 20... So we averaged about 21 pounds up top here. One of the amazing, cool things to see is oil pressure and fuel pressure are fantastic. Inlet air temperature is unbelievably low, and that's something I'm going to go over with when we highlight like the front to the back. I would love to do a Rambletron that's just excessively long and try to explain as much as I can front to back on the car, but everyone was like, Matt, why are you putting the turbo where you're putting the turbo? Why is it low? Why are you doing this? These are all the reasons why, guys, because we see when the turbo is in that position and it's feeding the intercooler with the least amount of bends and coming back into the intake, all of the aforementioned things, this is why we see good numbers everywhere. The car takes ignition, the car takes boost, the car makes good power per pound, the inlet temperature is outrageously low. Like if we look here, it started at like 88 Fahrenheit, and then here at the end of a 730 horsepower pull, it has gone up to 91. It has raised like a few degrees. It has gone up from 88 to 91. That's laughable. That's really, it's almost looks fake how little it has come up. So, and what's amazing is that's on 21 pounds. I can show you a picture of the plug. Still looked fairly conservative. I took a picture of it. I got a picture of the spark plug right here. It is still on the tabletop and not at the bend. What I said to Mark and a bunch of the other people was a setup like this would possibly take 20 pounds and 20 degrees because of the small cubes, large turbine, big exhaust, high quality fuel. etc. I said I've done a bunch of stuff like this. They'll take 20 pounds and 20 degrees up top. So it got close to that. The inlet temperature is amazing. So one of the things I'm keeping in my back pocket is a little bit more ignition. And I want to run, I would have loved to make 800 horsepower because it was making 30 horsepower to 35 horsepower per pound, depending on how much ignition I would have in it. So I could have easily added 2-3 pounds and picked up 60-80 horsepower, and it would have cleared 800. But that's one thing. We can just bring it down and dyno another day, maybe try the other camshaft, or just go straight to the track and target 24 pounds with a little bit more wastegate spring. There's a lot of stuff on the plate. We're trying to hammer through all of it, and I'm trying to create videos of all of it and give you guys a little bit of education and entertainment at the same time. So that's one fantastic thing here. The other thing that's pretty cool is I lifted at 6,400 on this dyno pull, and it went 140. The other pulls, a couple of them were close to 150. But right around 6,500, this was going close to 150 miles an hour, which gives us plenty of room to go as fast as we want. Another thing you can see here that's apparent at 9, what was 8 like? 8 was pretty awful. Let's get rid of 8. From 9, this was the compressor hooked up. The regulator was nosing off. And then this was the onboard boost control holding boost. So the power band and everything was better without the regulator crapping out on us. But anyway, I'm extremely happy with those numbers for 20, 21 pounds of boost on this 4.8 with dynamic compression ratios, one paper head gasket, one steel gasket, different heights per size. Everyone's like, that's not going to work. You're a moron. You should have done both gaskets. And this is why I do what I do, because what we learned here is none of that mattered. So... just to reiterate, those people were wrong. The car was fine on the dyno. We didn't push any coolant. Everything was good. Head gaskets are intact. Logs look good. Everything else looks good. Fuel consumption looks good. I like where everything is. The converter is doing great with the horsepower. So it's time to see how it does at the track. Hopefully in a week or two we get the cage burned in and we can go right out and start making hits with the thing and see how it does. If it hooks well and everything else, I'm assuming you're going to see close to, if not an 8-second pass relatively quickly from Mark, because he is very good at setting up a car and driving a car. So he will handle that aspect pretty quickly and efficiently. If you don't know who he is, you should just know that he's going to get that done. So all I had to do is produce the power. What we see is not exactly how much we would want. I would love to clear 800. It would make 8s much easier. 700 is going to make it harder to reach that goal. But what we saw, we ran out of wastegate spring. I'm reiterating, but we ran out of wastegate spring. Couldn't produce any more power for the day. I ran out of time. I was happy with that number. I was happy that the car didn't explode. Everything else, take it home, change the oil, check over everything, iron out the boost control, get it set up for the launch, all the internal software things that we need to have a successful day at the track, and create a video and report back, and maybe even do a cam swap in the meantime. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. I'm going to try to make a very long Rambletron front to back on the car explaining a lot of things, and I think in those videos in the comments, if it wasn't answered in the video, you can ask and I'll do my best to explain. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed. 730 rear wheel on a completely roached out piece of junk 4.8 that no one wanted, long crankshaft, 99 paper head gasket, everything's trash, off shelf $400 turbo from VS Racing, and just smash it into that thing and use the correct combination of what you think would not be any good. Making 730 through an auto is extremely respectable for my dyno. If you guys don't follow a lot of my videos, I'm not going to say that my dyno reads high or low, but mathematically we know what it takes to run a time, and we're in a good spot. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Goodbye.